welcome to another episode of our award-winning podcast, Smart People TravelWise, a platform where we discuss all things about travel. I'm your host, Tennie Sumague, coming to you from my hometown of Woodside, Queens, New York. And if you are tuning in for the first time, I'm going to give you a little bio about myself. I've been an educator for more than 2 decades, teaching music and special education in both elementary, middle school, and high school settings. I've loved travel all my life. I've been traveling for almost 4 decades, thanks to my mom and dad and Ate Noreen, my sister's bank accounts. I've been able to travel 5 continents in different cities and towns all over the continents in the world. I'm also a freelance journalist. I've been writing mostly sports and travel for 7 years. And I'm a travel advisor with TravelWise International, which it should be your go-to for all things travel related. And that's a little bit about myself. And welcome to this week's episode, where we'll be discussing one of my favorite places to go to, or I should say regions to go to. And we're going to continue my traveler's life list and focus on Southeast Asia. And the inspiration behind this episode is actually the Academy Award-winning actress, Michelle Yeoh. And the whole cast of Anywhere, Everywhere, Everything, All at Once. So congratulations to that cast. Asians in the film industry are finally getting noticed. And yes, that is the inspiration behind this week's episode. But before we get started, I like to remind everybody, if you are watching this live, hashtag live. And if you are watching this on replay, hashtag replay. Make sure you tell us where you're coming from so we can acknowledge all of you. Don't forget to like us on Facebook and YouTube. You can also listen on Amazon Fire, Spotify, iHeartRadio. Where else? I'm missing one more. I say Amazon Fire, iHeartRadio, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. And you can also just download the PHLV radio app, available on all iOS and Android phones. So it is the first week of spring. And guess what? Everybody should think about where they should travel, whether it's in the summer, fall, winter, next year. And one of my most favorite places to travel is Southeast Asia. And it's also because it's so close proximity from the Philippines to fly to either Singapore, Malaysia, Vietnam, Thailand, Laos, Myanmar, Indonesia. And we're going to discuss most of those places in a bit. But I do want to say that, yes, it's the first week of spring. I can't believe spring is here. Excited to see the cherry blossoms, and I'm just looking forward to spring breaks so I could have a mental break and daydream to which destination I should go to this year. So let's dabble in on Southeast Asia. And it's based on one of my favorite books, New York Times best-selling book, 1,000 Places to See Before You Die. It's a little blurry if you can see this, but it's by Patricia Schultz. And I've talked about this in previous podcasts, and it's very brutally used. It's pretty much, it's used and abused. And I always say this is my go-to as a travel advisor. This is where I get a lot of my information and suggestions to my clients. I read this book, and I've also been to most of the places wherever I've traveled. I've always used this book and used these suggestions. So we're going to talk about some of the suggestions that are mentioned here in the 1,000 Places to See Before You Die, and some of the places I've been to in Southeast Asia. And we're going to start off with one of the places why I was inspired to go to, thanks to Michelle Yeoh, because she starred in Crazy Rich Asians as the mother of Henry Golding's character. Um, uh, and I think watching that movie, the cinematography is so beautiful. It actually inspired me and my family to go there and do all the things that they went and did in the movie. And that's including, it was filmed in Singapore and Malaysia. Parts of it were filmed in Penang, which I will get to in a bit, but we're going to talk about Singapore, and that's how and why that's one of my favorite places that I've been to in my 40 plus years of traveling. And it's not one of those places that you read about when you're in geography class in third grade. In third grade you learn about the Colosseum, the Acropolis, you know about Golden Gate Bridge, but Singapore is actually more something that you learn more when you get older. Well, I think in this generation now that Crazy Rich Asians the movie came out, I think people Singapore is and it's always been a popular tourist destination, but even now that movie came out, it's even more popular, especially going to the infinity pool at the Raffles in Marina Sands Bay, the iconic structure that's known as Singapore. There's two structures, that the Marina Sands architectural structure of the not the airport, the hotel, the Raffles Hotel, and the Merlion, the lion, what spits out the water, Instagrammable photo that everybody has, and I have one too. I'm even mimicking the sculpture, or I should say the structure, the what do you call this, the structure sculpture. Yeah, but those are the two most iconic things that Singapore is known for. But what Singapore is also known for, it's I would say it's the safety of the country. People are very disciplined. They go by the honor system. When I went to Singapore back in 2019, heading into 2020, right before the pandemic hit, I spent New Year's there. I stayed at the Fullerton Hotel, I highly recommend, if you're into 5-star hotel places, that's where you should stay and play because it's right in the heart of the city, walking distance to the Lion, and you overlooks the Marina Sands Bay, and I was able to watch the fireworks during New Year's. And why I went there also during the New Year, it's also the beginning of the Lunar New Year. So anytime you want to go to Southeast Asia, the best time is always around this time period between December and April, and it's also low season. Just remember that, with the exception of the holidays and the lunar season, the lunar holiday. But yeah, I stayed at the Fullerton. It was 5-star hotel with all the amenities. I always say that to everyone who asks me for travel advice, that you got to go to the luxury route. You got to go to the 4-star, 5-star hotel, or the 4-star style cruise, because it's about value when you travel. And that was going to Singapore and Malaysia was one of the most valuable trips, unforgotten trips I've ever gone to in my lifetime. And not only it was because it was New Year's, the safety, but if you watch Crazy Rich Asians, there's a scene where they all eat, the friends, the boyfriend and the girlfriend, Constance Wu and Henry Golden went with the friends to the hawker stalls where they ate. And that's called Newton Center. And when I was in Singapore, and I was only in Singapore for 3 days, my sister and I and my mom, we actually went there twice to eat. And the food, Singaporean street food, is just at another level too. And one of their signature dishes is the Singaporean crab, and which is for all seafood lovers. Obviously, if you're allergic to seafood, you can't have that. There's other options that you could have at the hawker stall. But one of my favorite foods that I ate, other than the Singaporean chili crab, was the lobster. And it was like a pound of lobster. I know if you buy lobster, like a lobster roll here in New York City, I'm not sure elsewhere how much it is elsewhere. But New York City lobster roll at like Luke's ranges from like $25 to probably 30, and that's just a lobster roll. But if you buy a pound of lobster, it's usually ranges from like, I would say 100 or maybe a little bit less, or maybe half a pound of like a main live lobster. But we ordered a lobster there, and it was like $60. But remember, that was back in before the pandemic. And yeah, that's like one of the most amazing food experience I've had. Every culinary traveler needs to go to Singapore. There's the chili crab, the lobster, and I had barbecue stingray. Yes, stingray. I ate stingray. Usually in my travels, I like to do a Andrew Zimmern and eat some unique food, although I will never eat balut. And I said that here. And just seeing the chicken in the head, I'm just like, no. That's probably one of few odd, unique things I will never eat. But usually when I go to a country, I usually eat something. I have to eat something unique. It's just in my tradition to do that. So when I went to Singapore, I ate stingray. And that was barbecue stingray. And that's actually one of their specialties there as well. Another thing that I haven't had elsewhere is the dirty ice cream. It's actually just like the Singapore bread, and you buy it in the streets. There's vendors, and then it's just bread and ice cream. It's basically like an ice cream sandwich, but in milk bread. And yeah, that averaged somewhere between 5-6 Singaporean dollars. In US dollars, that's like $4. It might be higher now that after the pandemic and inflation, but that's one of the most unique food experience to have in Singapore. And don't forget, there's also the Singaporean gardens, Sentosa Island, even the airport, Changi Airport. It's one of the most beautiful airports in the world. And that's even a day tour in itself. I've never been to Changi Airport. I've only seen pictures and whatever I read in Travel and Leisure, that's what I'm basing it on. And also Crazy Rich Asians, because I did my trip to Singapore from Kuala Lumpur, which is about a 4 to 6 hour bus ride to get to Singapore, just a little bit. If you want the cheaper option to go from Malaysia, from Kuala Lumpur to Singapore, take the bus. It was a nice bus ride, unique. I like seeing the roads and whatnot. But if you want to go there quicker, take a flight and explore Changi Airport. Yes. So yes, Singapore, one of the most beautiful, safest places to go to anywhere in the world. And then we're gonna just briefly now go to, I also mentioned about the Singaporean gardens. If you want to go to the Singaporean gardens, which is one of the most beautiful gardens to see, you gotta see it during the evening where the lights, where the gardens are lit up. It's more beautiful to see during the late evening than to do it in the morning session. Now, one thing, we're gonna move on from Singapore to its neighboring country, where Michelle Yeoh is from and was born in, is Malaysia. Now, Malaysia and the Philippines, they have like a similar, there's similar cultural, even the language is very similar. Salamat, salamat. Malaysia, Indonesian, Philippines have, and I've been. People have thought that I was Malaysian. Well, Malaysians thought I was Malaysian, and it's a different. There's a similar. I guess I do have Malay. I have a Malay background, heritage, I should say, in my family. So we do look alike, but it's more, it just depends on the your roots. But Malaysia, which is about it's a 2-hour flight from Manila, and it's a great for those who wish to travel to Southeast Asia. And this is my recommendation too, as a travel advisor. Anyone who wants to go to Southeast Asia and doesn't want to do the whole long flight from, say, New York or Los Angeles or Las Vegas, which is roughly between a 14-hour to 18-hour flight. Fly to Singapore or fly to Kuala Lumpur from Manila, which is only about a 2-hour flight. And that's what I did, and that's usually what I do when I travel to the neighboring Southeast Asia countries from the Philippines. But let's go back to Malaysia, and before I talk about Kuala Lumpur, which wasn't you should for a first timer, always you always want to go to the big city and the capital city, and it's known for the Petronas Towers. And what I liked about Kuala Lumpur too, aside from how they do speak English, and there's very similarities to the Philippines and Malaysians. They are, the people speak English, but I'm going to talk about the food. Okay. I had we did one of those Instagram tours when we went to Malaysia, and we did like Batu Caves, and went to the food after Batu Caves, which is very beautiful. It has like the colorful stairs, and you'll see the monkeys running around up and down the stairs. And after that tour, our tour guide we went to eat in a place where they had Hainanese chicken, and I love Hainanese chicken. I lived off Hainanese. I kind of grew up eating Hainanese and soy sauce chicken, which is a little bit similar. It's the poached chicken. I just love chicken in general. But Hainanese chicken here in New York City, it ranges for a half a pound of Hainanese chicken with rice. It ranges from anywhere from $13 to $16. In Malaysia, obviously, of course, when you eat the actual food in the actual country, it's a lot cheaper. But I can believe I spent only $5 eating Hainanese chicken, and the tour guide never saw anyone eat chicken the way I did. I literally cleaned off my plate. I ate every bone, sucked every skin, the sauce with the rice. Oh, that was a delight. And he's just like, wow, you must really, really love chicken. I was like, yeah, don't talk to me. Me and chicken are like best friends. I will dog any type of chicken, especially that style of chicken. And that's one of the delicacies of Malaysia, and in Malaysia, food and culinary, the Malaysian food, Hainanese chicken. And also what's big there is also dragon fruit. A Starbucks drink, they have it, the mango dragon fruit drink, lemonade, that costs like $7-8, which I don't really buy unless I feel like splurging. But if you buy a dragon fruit drink, or even dragon fruit in the streets of Kuala Lumpur and also in Penang, it roughly is like $1. Maybe it's $2 now because of inflation. But yeah, like those things, it's beautiful. Dragon fruit. And my favorite dragon fruit is the red. You have to, well, I love the red dragon fruit. Some people don't like dragon fruit because it's a little bit tart, but it's one of my it became one of my favorite fruits thanks to going thanks Malaysia to my travels there in Malaysia. Now I do want to discuss one of my favorite cities in Malaysia that I've only been for a day, and it's probably one of the places I want to go back. Especially, I would love to do a cruise tour. For those who love cruising, if you do wish to cruise through Southeast Asia, your main destination is usually at Singapore. And in Singapore, and some of the itineraries that you see in Royal Caribbean and Celebrity Cruises, they you make pit stops from Singapore. One of the pit stops that you make in Malaysia is Penang, and they film parts of Crazy Rich Asians in Penang. The scene where Constance Wu is playing mahjong with Michelle Yeoh. That was the Blue House that was filmed in Penang. And I'm going to read a little bit about Penang here. It's called the Pearl of the Orient, based on Patricia Schultz's 1,000 Places to See Before You Die. It's funny, though, she wrote the best times is September to February, which I agree. I'm not sure about September usually, because usually that's monsoon season, the September, October in Southeast Asia. But I'm going to read a little bit here about the history. There's history in Penang. Penang has been a vibrant cultural crossroads since the first permanent Western settlement in the Far East was established here in 1786. So that's one of the port cities of Malaysia. And there's a lot of multi-ethnic communities in Asia. Muslim, Malays, Indonesians of various religions, Buddhist, Chinese, that exist. But what's cool about Penang too, not only is it a colonial city in Malaysia, talking about the food scene in Penang is off the wall. Probably one from Kuala Lumpur, it's about a 2-hour train ride, and it's easy to get around there. From the train station, you get to go to where the markets are, and you'll see that's where I did most of my shopping in Penang. But it's one of the most beautiful city. It's a colonial city, and it's probably one of the places I would love to go back. I love Penang kind of more than Kuala Lumpur. Basically, it's because it's less crowded and the history in itself. So 2 places that are a must in Malaysia. If you ever do Malaysia and Singapore, spend a week. If you have a week, you spend about 3 days in Singapore, 4 days in Malaysia. That's my suggestion. Or you do a cruise, you fly into Singapore and then you cruise around, find an itinerary. My recommendation, Royal Caribbean or Celebrity, and do an itinerary where Penang is included. It's a must. Okay, enough of Penang and Malaysia. We're gonna go up to one of the most popular Southeast Asian tourist destinations, which is Thailand. And I have actually story of Thailand. Yes, I did go to Bangkok from Manila, which is a 2-hour flight. And sadly, when I went to Bangkok, I had food poisoning. I ate siopao, and I think it was siopao in the airport, which gave me a bad case of of food poisoning. And throughout my 3 days in Bangkok, I was able to enjoy it. I was able to still eat the street food. Thai street food is also amazing. The Thai satay, the barbecue, you have to have it in the street. There's just no way. It's kind of equivalent to have Thai barbecue. It's kind of like you have to have souvlaki, the Greek barbecue on a stick, or in the Philippines, you eat the barbecue, in the street. The street food in the Philippines when you have barbecue is probably the best, and just even the experience. But when I went to Thailand, I did have I wasn't feeling good, but despite of like my illness, because I had shopao, that wasn't good. I was able to enjoy my 3 days in Bangkok, and one of my favorites in Bangkok, other than street food, was the floating market. The floating market, it's like going to Chinatown on a boat. And then you go on the boat, and then you see all the shops and the palenques, and then if you want something, you stop and then you buy it on the boat. And what did I buy? I remember buying lonsones and rambutan in the floating market. And then there's also the temples. Thailand also, hospitality is also amazing as well. And my also inspiration of why I wanted to go to Thailand is because of Miss Saigon. And I did watch Miss Saigon back when 1991, when Lea Salonga was in it, and that's probably one of the Broadway shows that I know most of the lyrics to. Thank you, because that's also where Lea Salonga, that's her rise to stardom as a Broadway actress, came from her role of Kim in Miss Saigon. And yeah, there's parts of I know there's parts of that the musical where it's filmed in Bangkok. And that was also, when I went to Bangkok, I immediately thought, like, I felt like I was starring in Miss Saigon. Yes. So Thailand, there's also, I mean, it's such a popular, for those who are in Instagram, you see a lot of the beaches, Phuket, what's a Krabi, and then also if you're thinking about going to Chiang Mai and explore that region, where that's mostly where you do those elephant rides. Although I did do that in Bangkok. That was a fun way to feed elephants. So when you feed an elephant I think I fed them cucumbers, and you have to feed it through their trunk, through their nose. So they actually they eat through their trunk or their nose, which I thought that was so amazing. One of the most interesting parts of my trip when I went to Thailand. I went to Thailand 2009. And I've been wanting to go back to Thailand, and hopefully one day, when my career as a travel advisor, with more experience, that's one of the countries I would love to sell. Now, the only places I've been to in Southeast Asia, aside outside the Philippines, have just been Singapore, Malaysia, and Thailand, which are probably the most popular tourist destinations in Southeast Asia. But there's one place I've been dying to go to, and I do plan to go either next year, is to go to Vietnam. And I have, that's because of also Anthony Bourdain and Miss Saigon. And I've also just been interested in the whole history of Indochina too, French Indochina. And what did I read about Vietnam? Ho Chi Minh City. That's where the fall of Saigon, and then also going to Hoi An, and then Ha Long Bay. And just to give a shout out to NARS, my lip liner, it's called Ha Long Bay. My favorite nude lip liner is inspired by Ha Long Bay. So shout out to NARS. I'm wearing this specifically for this episode. But my one of the things I'd love to do in Vietnam is also to just do a river cruise as well along the Mekong Delta. That's been one of my favorite, like um, my lifelong travel list in Southeast Asia is to do all those things. It's basically to do all the things that Anthony Bourdain did when he went to Vietnam. And Vietnam was actually, I believe, one of his, or if anything, it was his favorite Asian country that he's been to. And then, there's also that the don't worry about cultural barrier. I know that's also one of the things that was also a problem in when I went to Thailand, was the cultural barrier. But with Google and the help of, if you are staying in a hotel, you just ask the concierge to translate in their language, you're good to go. So I love to go to Hanoi, Hoi An, Halong Bay, Mekong, Saigon, and just rehearse scenes from and sing all the Miss Saigon soundtrack. A lifelong list of mine too that I've been trying to go to for the last decade or two is also Cambodia, and to go to Angkor Wat, and specifically only for Angkor Wat. I think that's the unique. It's one of those unique places that you need to see before your lifetime, because that's something what you could see in Angkor Wat. That's something that you really can't see anywhere in the world. But if probably if I ever go to Vietnam, or pick a specific place, or I would probably do Cambodia either from Vietnam or from Thailand. I wouldn't necessarily spend a whole week in Cambodia, unless I would love to teach English there, and do something remarkable and meaningful, being that I've been an educator for how many years already. Okay, now there's also Indonesia, thanks to Eat, Pray, Love, and also thanks to Instagram too. Seeing those reels, I would love to stay in a resort in the jungle, Bali, and I love Javanese music and the gamelan. One of a lifelong dream of mine is actually just to go to Bali. I don't care to go to Jakarta, although I heard my uncle who went there, my late uncle, I think, has traveled to Jakarta for business, and said it's one of the worst places. The traffic in Jakarta is worse than Manila. And Indonesia, not too far, and Indonesia is not also far from Davao, which is where my family's where my mom's from. Now we're gonna end this. Can't end this podcast without talking about the Philippines, and I think that could be in its separate category. I mean, I've done a couple episodes already talking about how it's more fun there, and I mean, there's 7,100 islands, but the number of times I've been to the Philippines, I have yet to go to Cebu, and I have yet to go to Palawan, and I have yet to go to Vigan, where my mom's side is from, and that's been actually in a long in her bucket list, is to see and know more about her Ilocano roots. I mean, she was only born in Ilocos Norte, but migrated to the Visayas. And I'll just say, to promote Philippines tourism, especially to the non-Filipinos who are listening on this podcast, I always say, it's just save your money, and you don't have to worry about language barriers, because everyone speaks English in the Philippines, and there's so much beautiful beaches that even I haven't been to. And I always promote that. I love promoting Davao, only because also the food there is the food scene there is very unique. The previous times I've been to the Philippines, in Manila, it's so hard to find mangosteen. And I will never forget the mangosteen jam that I bought in Davao. And unfortunately, that was confiscated when I went to the airport. I didn't hide it correctly. And since then, I've always been dreaming about that jam for the longest time. And what Davao is also known for is also its tuna too. It's probably the best tuna that you'll ever eat in your lifetime. But yes, in the Philippines, there's so much. There's 7,100 plus islands. The most popular places to go that foreigners usually go to. They usually go to Palawan, Siargao, Cebu for the beaches, for the diving. But I think one place that people should go to in the Philippines once in their lifetime, and if you like hiking, is to go to the Banaue rice terraces. And there's also rice terraces also in Vietnam. But yeah, the Banaue rice terrace, it's a pretty, that's a hike. And I'm glad that's one of the things I've done. And it's also, you'll read more about, it's mentioned too here in the book. The Banaue rice terraces are mentioned in the book as one of the places that you should see before you die. And yeah, I just remember my mom went with us to hike, and we were just saying, preventing her not to, because we knew that she probably couldn't handle it, and then she couldn't. And we had to call the ambulance. And the ambulance, when you go hiking, it's the old school. They get the little cot, and then they just carry you like back in the village times, and they just hike you up all the way back to the top. I mean, that's probably it. I mean, if the elderly want to hike and you want to experience that calling an ambulance, that's kind of a unforgotten experience that you want to do in your lifetime. But it's very costly. I think we paid 2,000 pesos for my mom to get hiked back up to the entrance, because she couldn't do the hikes, and she was also wearing the wrong shoes. But that's it for today. Hopefully these are good nuggets or good information that will help you travel wise and smarter, whether you want to do a land tour or a cruise tour, whether it's in Southeast Asia or anywhere in the world. Just contact me or contact TravelWise International, IYITravelWise.com, and let us plan your trip so that you can travel wisely. Smart People Travel Wise airs every Tuesday, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 12 noon Pacific. I'm Tennie Sumague. Catch you all next time. Take care.